Welcome to Real Coastal. My name is Austin Michelson. I am a WSAV news producer, and in my free time, I am a screenwriter and a lover of film. This podcast is going to be your source for all the latest and greatest in entertainment across the coastal empire and low country. And we're going to be bringing that news to you every single week right here at WSAV. As of this recording, it's mid-September. Well, coming up on mid-September. So we are firmly out of the summer movie season and heading into my favorite time of the year, the fall festival season. We had a pretty good summer movie season. I don't know about y'all, but I personally had a great time at the movies this summer. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the movies that came out this summer, what I thought of them, and we're going to talk about a movie that I didn't see when it first came out, but I caught up with, and I'll tell you how I felt about it. And then we'll look forward to a movie that looks excellent coming out pretty soon that I'm looking forward to. Let's get started, shall we? We kicked off the summer movie season with a bang. Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, which we are going to be getting into spoilers here. There's a little asterisk on that title. Thunderbolts are the new Avengers. There's going to be implications there for the Marvel Cinematic Universe at large. I caught up with this one not long after it came out at the start of May, and I really liked it. As someone who has fallen into the camp of not loving every MCU project since Avengers Endgame in 2019, I thought Thunderbolts was an exciting, kind of refreshing look at this kind of ragtag team concept. We've seen this done before on the other side of the street with DC Suicide Squad. We'll talk more about DC here in a few minutes. But I really enjoyed Thunderbolts. I thought Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, she's great in everything. I also love Wyatt Russell as U.S. Agent. I think he's phenomenal in that role. I've loved him since he first started doing that in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney+. And speaking of the Winter Soldier, you see him there. Bucky Barnes, my guy. Great supporting turn in this. I love getting to see more Bucky. This movie made a pretty good amount, $382 million at the worldwide box office. This film was directed by a gentleman by the name of Jake Schreier, whose name I certainly just butchered. You probably don't know much about him. Marvel likes to pull these kind of young indie directors for their projects. He directed an adaptation of the John Green novel Paper Towns in 2015, a novel I love. I've not seen that movie adaptation. It's on my list. And clearly Marvel thinks he did something right because they've now tapped him to direct their X-Men reboot, which will be coming out at some nebulous point in the future. Clearly they liked what they saw with Thunderbolts, and they're going to want to repeat that success with the X-Men. Thunderbolts, thumbs up. I like that one a good amount. Gave it 4 stars. Their other big release this summer, the one that I think people probably were more excited about because this group has never really had a massive success at the box office, either financially or critically. That is the Fantastic Four: First Steps. That title's still really kind of clunky in my book. Another huge movie for Marvel, part of a huge summer for them. Their biggest in a long time, I think. We see him there, Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. I saw this one on my birthday, which was fun. I saw it on my 24th birthday, the Fantastic Four for my 24th, so that's fun. Pedro Pascal, Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby, Sue Storm. Ebon Moss-Bachrach, whose name I also probably just butchered, played Ben Grimm. You might know him from FX's The Bear on Hulu. And then a Stranger Things alumni, Joseph Quinn, as the Human Torch, a.k.a. Johnny Storm. I had a good amount of fun with the Fantastic Four: First Steps. I've not seen the other Fantastic Four films. They're on my list. I have a very long watch list. But I had a good amount of fun with Fantastic Four. This one was directed by a gentleman by the name of Matt Shakman, who, again, another indie guy tapped by Marvel to do great big things. But you probably know his other Marvel project, 2021's Disney Plus series WandaVision, which massive success, very good show. Fantastic Four, $511 million worldwide. I liked it. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to love it. I felt like we could have gone a bit more into the family dynamics of the four before getting into this massive world-shaking conflict they find themselves in with Galactus. Give that one 3 out of 5. Overall, very good summer for Marvel. Seems like the House of Ideas is getting back on their feet after a kind of shaky post-pandemic period. Remains to be seen if that success will continue with their next couple films, which will be a 2-part Avengers epic next year and a new Spider-Man film. On the other side of the street, I mentioned we've been talking about DC a little bit. Superman. Very, very, very big movie for DC and for Warner Brothers. This is the start of their new DC cinematic universe, spearheaded by one James Gunn, whose name you might recognize from a little franchise, Guardians of the Galaxy. Superman, great film. $614 million at the worldwide box office, starring David Corenswet as Superman, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, Nicholas Hoult in what I think is one of the best supporting turns of the year as Lex Luthor. James Gunn, a completely unsubtle filmmaker in all the best ways. I'm very excited to see what he does with the rest of DC. He's not just directing this movie and the next Superman movie. He's leading the way for DC's cinematic future, which I think is very exciting. We need more, filmmakers leading these big franchises as opposed to boardrooms. He directed the Guardians of the Galaxy films. He directed 2021's The Suicide Squad, a vast improvement over 2016's Suicide Squad. I like Superman a whole heck of a lot. Gave it 4 out of 5. And Gunn will return to direct the sequel, which was just announced a couple days ago, Man of Tomorrow, which comes out in 2027. Going to shift over to the indie side of things now. Great filmmaker coming out with his latest work this summer. That is Wes Anderson and the Phoenician Scheme. It's very hard to have a bad time with Wes Anderson. You surely may not know his name. You definitely know what his films look like. He's directed such classics as Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore, Moonrise Kingdom, one of my favorite films of all time, Moonrise Kingdom, The French Dispatch, Asteroid City, his Oscar-nominated Grand Budapest Hotel. He just won an Oscar for The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, which is an adaptation of a Roald Dahl book. Phoenician Scheme, very, very fun movie. Very different from his typical fare. This is kind of more of a crime caper almost. Benicio del Toro plays the lead. Michael Cera with another great supporting turn. I think we need to just keep Michael Cera in any Wes Anderson film going forward, because that is a director and actor match made in heaven. Made $39 million worldwide. It's about what you'd expect for a Wes Anderson release. 4 stars. It's a good fun time. Again, very hard to not have fun with Wes Anderson. Another big blockbuster coming out this summer. The live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. This one made $632 million worldwide. Coming to us from DreamWorks and Universal. I'm typically not a huge fan of these live-action remakes. I will say, in defense of How to Train Your Dragon, as you can see here, the CGI is spectacular. The dragons are brought to life incredibly well. But I will always beat the drum of animation. I don't love adapting these animated stories to live action. I feel like part of the charm of animation is telling stories that you can't tell in live action. Nonetheless, How to Train Your Dragon is faithful to a fault. It is basically a 1-to-1 remake of the original. If you've seen the original, you're probably going to like this one. Faithful to a fault is what I'll say for How to Train Your Dragon. It was a big summer for horror movies as well. I know there's a lot of folks who love horror. I'm slowly kind of dipping my toes into the horror pool. And I did that in possibly the best way with Zach Kreger's Weapons. This is a very fun, exciting mystery horror thriller. Great all-star cast here. You've got Julia Garner playing the lead as Justine Gandy, a teacher whose entire class, except for one student, has gone missing all at once at 2:17 in the morning. Josh Brolin as Archer. He's a father looking for his lost son. Great ensemble cast. I think Amy Madigan as Gladys is the single best supporting performance of the entire year. I will not tell you anything else about her performance because you have to see Weapons to believe it. Very, very good film. Highly recommend it. That made $251 million worldwide and counting. It is still in theaters. If you want to go see it in theaters, I highly recommend you do. Excellent film. Pretty scary at parts too, but also very funny. Big summer for Netflix as well. We all, love sitting at home watching our Netflix movies. 2 massive, huge hits for Netflix this summer. Earlier in the summer, we had the animated hit that everyone is talking about, K-pop Demon Hunters, which you can scoff at the concept all you want. This is a phenomenal film, ladies and gentlemen. This is directed by Maggie Kang and Chris Applehans for Sony Pictures Animations. It follows a K-pop girl group who hunts demons. It's right what it says on the tin. The stats on this one are kind of unbelievable. This is the single most watched Netflix title ever. Not TV show or film, title ever. Single most watched in the history of Netflix. The music is phenomenal as well. One of the lead singles off the album, Golden, hit number 1 on the Billboard US 100 and Global 200, which is insane. I don't think that's ever happened, or at least it hasn't happened in a long, long time. It also came to theaters for a weekend. And while Netflix does not release their box office numbers because they are not in the box office business, we do know from studio estimations that K-pop Demon Hunters brought in $19 million in just 2 days at the domestic box office. That's US and Canada. Number 1 for that weekend. I went and saw it that weekend. It was practically sold out. I had a great time. That is the first time that Netflix has ever topped the box office in their history. And I sincerely hope that will push Netflix to put their films in theaters more, because I had a great time seeing this in theaters. It was a fun time. And if you're looking for something good to watch on Netflix, fire up K-pop Demon Hunters. It is a great, great time. The other big hit for Netflix this summer, the sequel to a film you might see behind me, other shoulder. I'm bad at this. Happy Gilmore 2, the legacy sequel to one of my favorite comedies of all time, Happy Gilmore. Adam Sandler, obviously returning in that role. This is a fun one. This is a fun one to just kind of turn on and just have a fun laugh at. This is the biggest Netflix debut of the entire year. K-pop Demon Hunters kind of flew under the radar when it debuted, but people are excited for more Gilmore. Obviously, you've got the full main cast returning. You got the Sandman coming back, who he's having fun. At least he's having fun. It's always fun to see Adam Sandler have fun. Ben Stiller returning as Hal. And you've got a laundry list of celebrity cameos. Bad Bunny, Haley Joel Osment playing a supporting role, Sandler's kids, professional wrestlers like Maxwell Jacob Friedman and Becky Lynch. Post Malone is in this movie for a little bit. Steve Buscemi, Margaret Qualley, Eric Andre. The list goes on and on and on. If you're looking for something fun and funny to watch on Netflix, just to turn the brain off and just enjoy a laugh for a couple hours, it's hard to miss with Happy Gilmore. And obviously, the original is excellent as well. And there is so much more that I did not see this summer. Like I said, this is a huge, 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 huge summer at the movies. We're going to run through a couple movies that I have not yet seen, but I'm very excited to see, and where you'll be able to watch them pretty soon because that all comes out on streaming eventually. Friendship is a comedy from A24. Stars Tim Robinson, who you might know from his Netflix sketch comedy, I Think You Should Leave. Phenomenal show. I've heard nothing but praise for Friendship. I've heard it is basically a feature-length sketch from I Think You Should Leave, which I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty enticing to me. Also stars Paul Rudd. Very funny man. Very funny team up there. So I'm interested to check that one out. Another one I've heard nothing but good things about, Final Destination Bloodlines. And I know this is number 6 in that franchise. And again, I'm only just dipping my toes into horror, but I watched the first Final Destination over the summer. and I had a grand old time with it. I've heard Bloodlines is very, very good. That one is on HBO Max, as is Friendship. So I would definitely be checking those out sooner rather than later. Another horror release that just got a streaming announcement, 28 Years Later, the sequel to 28 Weeks Later, which sequel 28 Days Later, which came out years and years and years and years and years ago. We love a good zombie movie, folks. Plain and simple. I've heard 28 Years Later is excellent. I've not seen 28 Days, which I think we'll need to rectify before I watch 28 Years. That is coming to Netflix later in September. I believe that is September 20th that it bows on Netflix. Another big entry in a new franchise this summer, Jurassic World Rebirth, which it's always fun to watch dinosaurs just absolutely wreck house. This one is kind of a departure from the previous Jurassic World franchise. No Chris Pratt in this one. Instead, we've got Scarlett Johansson, who you definitely recognize, and Jonathan Bailey, who you probably recognize from Wicked, last year's Wicked film. Excellent movie. I love the Jurassic World movies. I love Jurassic Park. Did not find time to get out to the theater to see this one. So I'm excited to see this one. It's universal release, which means it will be on Peacock once that one is on streaming. Another big blockbuster that did really well this summer, kind of surprisingly, was F1, the sports action film. This is the first real box office success for Apple, which is interesting. It stars Brad Pitt as has-been Formula One racer, directed, as you see there, by Joseph Kosinski, who is the director of the excellent Top Gun Maverick. So if we can see even half of the incredible action of Top Gun Maverick in Formula One with Brad Pitt in that race car, I'd say this movie is going to be a success. Very excited to watch it. Apple TV Plus, as it is an Apple release, should be pretty soon. That will be coming on Apple TV Plus. Another entry in another franchise that I love, frankly, Ballerina. This is a John Wick spinoff. You see him there. Ana de Armas as the lead in this one, a phenomenal actress. Not quite sure what the plot is of this one, but then again, I'm not watching John Wick for the plot. I'm watching it for the vibes. This is from Summit Entertainment, Thunder Road Films. This one just got announced today. It's coming to Stars. So if you've got Stars, you've got a John Wick movie to catch up on. Another big one that just got announced today for streaming release, a big comedy. Another pretty good summer for comedy. The Naked Gun, a legacy sequel to the comedies from the 70s and 80s. This one starring Liam Neeson. Interesting to see Liam Neeson kind of working on his comedy chops. I've never really seen him in a comedic role. I didn't rush out to see this one, but I've heard that it is fantastic. I've heard that it is a laugh a minute. As you can see there, that gag was pretty good. Paramount released this one. This one will be on Paramount Plus. I believe it was September 20th. It was announced today. It will be coming out there. So make sure you check that one out. So as I said, I did miss quite a few summer releases this year, and I will atone for that sin once they all release on streaming. But one that I did catch up on when it came out on streaming, it's on Disney Plus now, the live action remake of Lilo and Stitch. This is everyone knows Lilo and Stitch. We all know Stitch. This is a seminal movie from my childhood. This came out, I believe, 2002, the year after I was born. I watched, 2002. I remember wearing out my DVD of Lilo and Stitch. Stone cold classic. I enjoyed the live action Lilo and Stitch. Well, I know I'd said earlier I'm not really a fan of these live action remakes. They can be done well. And I think Lilo and Stitch is an example of that. I think, obviously you're not going to be getting a real Stitch to play that role. But I thought the CGI in this film that brought Stitch to life was great. We really kind of get that cute and fluffy look on Stitch, and we also get that kind of gross, weird look for some of the other creatures in the film. This film was shot and directed very, very well by a gentleman by the name of Dean Fleischer Camp. He directed one of my favorite films of the decade so far, the Little Scene A24 animation mockumentary hybrid Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Kind of a tongue twister of a title, but it is one of my favorite films of the decade. I had the pleasure of meeting him at the Savannah Film Festival a couple years ago. An absolute gentleman. I was very pleased to see him announced as the director of this. I knew he would knock it out of the park. He did very, very well. This is the big winner of the summer box office. This one made over $1 billion worldwide. I believe it is the only film this summer to achieve that. So big congrats to him. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. That said, let's talk about the actual film. Billy Magnuson plays the role of Pleakley in this film, the one-eyed squid-looking alien. He's great in that role. He had a lot of fun. And the little girl you see playing Lilo is a name I'm also going to butcher, Maya Kealoha. She's a new actress. This is her first big role, and she did wonderful. She did a great job bringing that sort of youthful spunk of Lilo to life, while also, not being afraid to get a little bit rebellious against her older sister, Nani. Which, again, we all know the story of Lilo and Stitch. I don't have to explain the story of this film to you. Shot on location in Hawaii, and I loved how authentically they brought to life Hawaiian culture in this film. They did a great job making it feel very natural. I do wish that it went a bit more in depth on the impact of tourism on Hawaii. There are a couple scenes where we kind of get a look at that. But I wish that we had gone just a little bit more in on that. Let's talk about the not so great of this film. Zach Galifianakis, who he plays the role of Jumbo Jukiba, the creator of Stitch. I don't think he was the person for that role, quite frankly. And they also kind of changed the film around a little bit to make Jumbo the villain. I don't think Jumbo works very well as the villain. I think he works a whole heck of a lot better as that sort of bumbling Abbott and Costello type comedic duo with Pleakley, which we still do get. But I wish we could have gotten that instead of him being a villain. The absence of Captain Gantu, of one of the great original characters in the original film, in this remake, he was sorely missed. He was not in this film, unfortunately. There are a couple new additions to the film as well, as you kind of want there to be when you're adapting a story that's about 20 years old to live action. I don't think they really added a whole ton to the story. We do get the introduction of Nani and Lilo's neighbor, Tutu, who is, I believe, Nani's romantic interest, David's grandmother. She doesn't really do a whole lot for the story. She kind of exists just to bail out Nani, which I feel is kind of a disservice to Nani as a character. In the original, Nani's very resourceful and willing to do just about anything to protect her sister. I feel like Tutu was just kind of there to point at the answer and say, hey, this is what you should do. Which, I don't know, kind of underdoes Nani's character a little bit. And then, we have David, who doesn't have a whole lot to do in the original, has even less to do in this one. They also changed the ending of Lilo and Stitch for this new one. In the remake, Nani leaves Lilo in Hawaii. She's left in the care of David and Tutu. Nani goes off to study marine biology and can return home whenever via a portal gun that Jumbo created that Stitch stole. I know a lot of folks had very strong opinions about this new ending. I didn't hate it, but I do think kind of wastes that message of Ohana means family means nobody gets left behind. We all know that message from the original film. Kind of undercuts that message if you're going to just have Nani zip off to college. Overall, Lilo and Stitch, very cute movie, very fun, if only because all the best bits of it are cribbed from the original. I gave Lilo and Stitch a 2 out of 5, which is a perfectly fine score. I'd say that's a just okay. Let's talk about some coming attractions, folks. There's always something new coming out in theaters, and every week to round out the podcast, I'm going to talk to you about what I think is going to be the bigger releases of the week and what I'm going to go watch this weekend. This weekend, it is a adaptation of the first novel that Stephen King ever wrote, not his first to be released, but the first one he wrote. Released it in 1979 under the pen name Richard Bachman. I am, of course, talking about The Long Walk. This is coming out via Lionsgate in theaters this weekend. It was directed by a gentleman by the name of Francis Lawrence, who you may recognize from his other films, The Hunger Games Catching Fire, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Parts 1 and 2, Hunger Games Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and next year's Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping. This guy has a thing for directing stories about teenagers fighting to the death, because that is what The Long Walk is about. This is a story about a group of young men who are on a walk, a very long walk, as the title implies. Basically, walk or die. Again, based on a Stephen King novel, starring Cooper Hoffman, a very bright young talent. That last name might be familiar to you. He is the son of the late, great Philip Seymour Hoffman. Cooper's been in such films as Paul Thomas Anderson's Licorice Pizza. He was in last year's excellent Saturday Night. Very, very exciting young talent to keep an eye on. Also starring someone you may or may not know, Mark Hamill plays the Major, the man behind The Long Walk. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain to you who Mark Hamill is, but Luke Skywalker, y'all. Come on now. Yeah, Stephen King adaptation. I love me some Stephen King. This has been on my radar for a very, very long time. Comes out on September 12th. That is this Friday. People have already seen it early. It's got a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm hearing that it is one of the best films of the year. Very excited to see it. And I will tell you if I agree with that high praise next week on Real Coastal. For now, though, that is it for this week's edition of Real Coastal. If you'd like to reach out, send me some recommendations. I'm always active on my watch list. You can reach me at amichelson@wsav.com. You can see it right there. You can also find me on Instagram at AUSMICHTV. I'm also on Letterboxd at AUSMICH. Thanks for watching.